Okay, and we are live and good evening, all of you. Welcoming the participants of this session and welcoming the panelists who have taken their and committed their time for the next 2 hours to discuss about social entrepreneurship with all of you. I think thank you so much joining participants and the panelists both. We'll start with the whole point of why we are doing a session on social entrepreneurship right away. Because in a situation where a country like us, I think we need a lot of social entrepreneurs in the country, and to encourage and give the guidance around the whole ecosystem of social entrepreneurship, we have five experienced panelists who will be speaking to you about social entrepreneurship, what we can expect out of it, how you are going to move forward, and even going global. So these are a couple of things that we are trying to highlight over this session for the next 1.5 to 2 hours, right? Before we start, let me quickly share a brief video about the Global Entrepreneurship Week, and then we will get into that point of also about Global Entrepreneurship Week as well. All right. So Global Entrepreneurship Week, something that we are being celebrating from 14th of November to 20th, and I think we all know that we from Sri Lankan context we have over 100 events happening physically and virtually. Some of you have already done this panel of members in this panel. I think they have been doing a lot of events with this Global Entrepreneurship Week for the last couple of days. And thank you for committing your time. Before we do anything further, let me introduce the panel of joining. She is the director of youth development of the Shilpa Sayura Foundation. Thank you so much. We have Ahmad Nishad, Mr. Ahmad Nishad, who is the Tech for Development lead of UNDP Sri Lanka. Then we have Ms. Chamatka Ratnayaka, attorney at law by profession, and also she is a very aggressive social entrepreneurship influencer in regional areas in the country, which is a very high value addition for our rural areas. And then we have Mr. Akila Vijayatunga, founder and CEO of Arts Lab Creatives, right? And we have Dr. Kalpana Ambepitiya, senior lecturer, Department of Management and Finance, General Sir Kotalavala Defense University. And myself, I am Dushant Rannala, tech evangelist, and I will be the moderator for this session in the evening. Right. Before we start to get into the topics of today's evening, uh, I think thank you so much for all the partners in the ecosystem. I heard that we have beyond 50 partners in Sri Lankan ecosystem celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week this year, and all of these effort are being put because we need a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship based company startups in country in this society right now. Right. I think we will move ahead with our questions for the day. I'll raise my first question towards Dr. Kalpana. First question towards Dr. Kalpana. I think Dr. Kalpana, you can start with that point, set the stage, and then we can move forward to the other relevant questions.
Uh, Dushanta, can you repeat the question because there was a network error?
Okay.
I don't know it's a problem with you or like myself.
Am I audible now?
Now, yeah,
Okay. The first question to ask is, what is social entrepreneurship? How would you define it to get a basic idea about what social entrepreneurship is?
yeah. Uh, Before moving to social entrepreneurship, I would like to talk about what is entrepreneurship, because, according to my point of view, the word entrepreneurship, the concept entrepreneurship, has been misled or misinterpreted in our context. Everybody think that it is easy to develop entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship, but it is very hard to develop entrepreneurs. It's very hard to create entrepreneurships in our society, and not only in Sri Lanka but also in the global scale. It is hard to do that, but it is something possible. But what is this entrepreneurship is? Then how we deviate the entrepreneurship with the normal business? Because everybody recognize themselves as entrepreneurs, but actually they are not in entrepreneurship. So firstly, we will talk about entrepreneurship. Therefore, so that's why I thought like to explain the audience what we call entrepreneurship. That is exactly you are coming up with a new business idea. The idea should be very unique, or it could be a new market that you are discovering. It could be a new material or new ingredient, right? You are discovering. It could be a new business model that you are recognizing, introducing. So it can be something new and unique. But when we take this word entrepreneurship, everybody apply this word to recognize any kind of a business which is theoretically wrong, conceptually wrong. So we have to correct it firstly. So then I move to social entrepreneurship. So you will be able to understand what is this then. The social entrepreneurship is again a novel idea. It's again a new idea. It's again a unique idea. So I would like to add this to that, a novel business idea that directly address a social issue, that is called a social entrepreneurship. So it's supposed to be a new business idea, a unique idea, which is addressing existing social issue, or a social issue which is coming in the future. So this is how we can define the social entrepreneurship, or practically it is what we call a entrepreneurship. So social entrepreneurship. So social entrepreneurship is not a charity organization. So when we take social entrepreneurship, we can categorize it into four types basically. The number one is trading enterprises. So trading enterprises are basically like the organizations which are having a co-ownership with their employees. So in order to facilitate and boost the productivity, and also the enhancing the revenue, so organizations are there. They having the co-ownership with their employees. These kind of social enterprises we call as trading enterprises. And there's another one, that is financial institutes. So I think this is very familiar to us as well, because all microfinancing organizations, then credit unions, loan funding organizations, corporate banking, cooperative bankings, all these things are coming under this financial institutes, which are again categorized under the social enterprises. Why? Because members are benefited. Members are benefited. Sometimes the members can they can have high rates on their savings, and also low rates on their loans. So basically, we call this kind of social enterprises owned by the members. So shared by the ownership is shared with the members. And the third one is charity and NGOs. So then we have to recognize that the charity donor organizations, especially the NGOs, also we are considering as social enterprises. So they are basically working on several issues. For example, could be climate change, women empowerment, the access to education, access to healthcare. There can be any kind of a social issue they would be working on. So this kind of organizations are charity, and the charity organizations as well as NGOs. And the fourth one is community oriented organizations. So they are basically in the development and enhancing the coping capacity of the community. So community development organizations basically. So they are reinvesting the revenue again to the community to develop the community. So these are the basically the four ways we can, four categories coming under the social enterprise, social entrepreneurship. So any social any social enterprise which is exactly practicing the same idea like other organizations, whether their business entity, their base business idea is common, then we can recognize it as a social enterprise. But if it's a very unique idea, that is the only idea we can see, and which is not common, which is very new, and addressing a social issue, and try to change the society, or expecting a social change and transform social transformation, so then we can recognize it as a social entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana. I think that's a very uh, informative explanation about how we understand the social entrepreneurship in this community, and where the any misunderstandings were taken. Then I think this clarified all of those. Thank you so much for that. I think I'm heading the next question towards friend Ahmad. uh, okay, so in Sri Lankan context, where are we? What is the current the status of social entrepreneurship in the country? Any ideas, any stats you have behind this question?
Thanks, Tushanta. Yeah, so you can hear me well, right?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm not on video. Having network issues, bandwidth issues. I think joining from a hotel room. Uh, so yeah, social entrepreneurship. I think in India, it's a new thing that some people are getting to know now. Uh, I think Dr. Kalpana's definitions were very spot on. You know, about what social entrepreneurship is, and how do we define it and all that. Uh, as far as I know, I mean, we've been working as UNDP. We've been working in the social entrepreneurship space for the last 3 to 4 years. Uh, we've been seeing a growth here. There are companies, there are startups who are sometimes even starting up as a startup, but without knowing that they're actually a social enterprise itself. Some of them are doing excellent work, but don't seem to know what that they're doing social entrepreneurship. But some most from what I know is what I can see is that they don't seem to know what social entrepreneurship itself, and there's a lot of confusion that happens between uh, as a social entrepreneur, can you do business, or a social enterprise, can you engage in business? That's one of the biggest questions that I get wherever I go. I mean, even the last 5 days I've been in the northern province here, working on doing sessions for VTA students on social entrepreneurship as part of the Global Entrepreneurship Week programs. And one of the questions that I always get from all these most of the students is, um, so if you're doing something good, if you're working towards something that helps the community or helps the society, how can we do it as a business? How can we make money out of it? Right? Isn't that wrong? So this kind of concepts are still it looks new to them. I mean, they don't seem to understand that you can still make money, but you can also make money by doing good. Right? They don't understand that uh, you need to have a financial sustainability when it comes to having startups, running a startup. So these are things I think that uh, people are learning now. I think the awareness that is being created by all parties, all stakeholders in this area is good. uh, there has to be more work in terms of numbers. I'm not too sure how many social entrepreneur or enterprises we have, or entrepreneurs we have in Sri Lanka, but it's growing is what I can see. There are lots of people who are working on environment related issues. We even have a in Sri Lanka, we even have a startup, one or two startup accelerators focusing in this area, incubators focusing in this area, working with startups, in the environment space, in the garbage, in the waste management space, things like this. And also, so one thing that I I always try to emphasize is, when you do social entrepreneurship, it's not, and when you do when a solution is not just for waste management or environment, right? Some solutions can be very different, can be for different people. I mean, there are solutions I have seen solving the microfinance issue that I think Dr. Kalpana also touched on. Things like this. Uh, uh, so things are happening. That's what I can see. And it's growing. Nice to see it's growing. And hoping that we'll have more of these startups coming up in the future. Back to you, Dushan.
Superb. I think couple of things I also want to highlight around this whole initiatives taken by UNDP is that they do their own Green Innovation Challenge, different other initiatives like Hackaday, encouraging social entrepreneurship for the last couple of years, and that has been a, a positive value addition towards the society, uh, creating enterprises as well as creating jobs around it. I think that's a great effort being put. And also, I think we'll discuss about the support ecosystems uh, on helping social entrepreneurship in the later stages of this discussion. My next question goes to Ms. Purnima with regard to okay. So before we get into any other topics, I want to know, what do you do? What is your experience as a social entrepreneur? Shed some lights on that.
Um, yeah, okay. Thank you, Dushan. So, I've actually been involved in the social sector for about over 10 years now. And I'm actually the founder of Girls in Technology, Next Gen Girls in Technology, which is an initiative that focuses on increasing women and girls' participation in advanced technology careers. By doing that, we hope to increase diversity in the Sri Lankan technology sector. So, that is the space that I work in. Um, yeah, so we have been doing this work for about 4 5 years now, and right now we are getting ready to go into our new season of Next Gen, where we which is called Next Gen Skills, so which is aiming to train university students on foundation technology industry skills to bridge the skills mismatch that exists in that space between like graduate undergraduates and industry needs. Yeah, so that is kind of what we do, and as a result, our work have been recognized with UNESCO Prize for Girls and Women's Education, ITU WSIS Prize, and for me personally, we just got selected for Forbes 30 under 30 list as well. Yeah, so that's kind of my background on social entrepreneurship.
Superb. So I think you are into a path where you are more focusing on women entrepreneurship. So I think and girls in technology, that kind of a domain, right? Which is
Yes.
again something that may have lacked in the recent past, and I think a couple of initiatives not are now taking place towards helping girls in technology, girls in management, girls in engineering. I think that's a great initiative. Thank you so much for your answer. uh, I'll move in before moving to the next question. I think if you any participant, any viewer, any have any questions, you can always post it on either in the Facebook live in as a comment, or in the YouTube live as a comment, and then we will get those question in discussion while we are moving forward. Uh, we have Ms. Chamatka as our next candidate for to answer the questions. Uh, we know that you are an aggressive influencer about social entrepreneurship, especially focusing on rural areas. What is your experience? What have you seen? What is needed towards helping the rural community with social entrepreneurship?
Hi, Dushanda. First of all, can everyone hear me?
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Dialogue Ideamart for having me on the panel today. It's such a pleasure to be among such eminent figures in in the area. And I have it's a pleasure to work with Dialogue again, as I have worked with you all before, um, to speak about some of the work I do and who I am. I am primarily a lawyer, also a political activist in the Monoragala district, and I also work with a lot of women and young people, in trying to encourage them to sort of stand up on their own feet and think differently, um, and focus on developing themselves. So in that light, I think what I see as a trend in Sri Lanka right now, especially given the environment, given the economic crisis, given everything that's happening in the country, I think there is an environment that's conducive to a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of social entrepreneurs emerging in this country, especially in rural areas. I see the attitudes of young people and women changing towards what entrepreneurship and business. Because usually, if you look at even 5-10 years ago, you'd see, um, especially young people coming out of education, wanting to either go into the university system and get into public sector work, rather than do something on their own. And we see that culture changing, and the government acting as a regulator, facilitator, and understanding that role, and understanding the need for the private sector and entrepreneurship and business to expand. Um, Actually, Dushanta, speaking of the work I do and some of the young people I work with, I think with social entrepreneurship, a lot of the problems, a lot of the solutions that are found, um, are identified usually through personal experience. I think as you came to Moragala and you saw, when you all did the tech entrepreneurship program, that a lot of solutions to problems are identified through very lived experiences. Be it, someone wanted to create a disaster management app, the other person wanted to um, make efficient an ambulance service, or drop off medicine and rations during, um, a period without fuel. So I think, um, these kids also then understood that it's okay to make money out of something like that and also help people. And I think it's important going forward, even around the world, to understand that profit making isn't the only thing that matters in business, and that you can, create an environment that's conducive to so many other things and help your community, help the environment, help other people around you. So I think what I mainly see, and it's heartening to see for me. I'm running a entrepreneurship program for women entrepreneurs in a couple of weeks in the district as well, and what I am seeing is an increasing interest to actually become an entrepreneur from a lot of people, especially in rural Sri Lanka, who've depended on a subsidy culture and a culture of seeking public sector work. So yeah, that's primarily what I want to initially touch on, and I think I'd like to talk about the regulatory and legal framework later on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chamatka. Uh, I think spot on. And what we experienced also while we were in Monragal and Bibile is that the potential is very high right now with the student community. And also, it's just that they don't have the proper tools and technology to go forward and do the crazy magic that we all are looking forward to. And the whole effort behind promoting entrepreneurship is for make sure that not to have entrepreneurship as the last resort for anybody, but this should be the first choice for anybody to take that step and move forward, because even recently we had this evaluation program about for university startups, right? So very innovative stuff. Sometimes they might not even have realized what their real value is about their innovation, their entrepreneurship enterprise. So I think it's time that we give them the feedback, take them to the next level, and take them even beyond borders, let them access the global market. I think thank you so much, Chamatka, on shedding the insight about how rural areas have been working, and how they have been progressing well, so that they will not be a rural area anymore in the future, very recent future. I'll move forward to Akila. Akila has a very uh, different expertise with regard to entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. I think I expect you to talk more and more about digital marketing, brand management, things like that. How a social entrepreneur can be benefited with digital marketing and other tools that are available, right? So, first of all, why is it important for a social entrepreneur or a social enterprise to build their own brand? How important is it? Can we discuss about that first?
Well, yeah. So, first of all, I'd like to thank you for setting up this conversation, because I think, like the previous speakers also mentioned, it's really important that we discuss this topic in the current context where, as a nation, we are facing different difficulties. We are facing different struggles. So, in such a context, how do we help our own communities to come out of this struggle and not let it, go backwards, but always try to keep moving forwards. But before speaking of branding in detail and the importance of branding in detail for an entrepreneur, stemming from what Dr. Kalpana also mentioned, I wanted to look at a couple of things, or share a couple of things when it comes to the idea of social entrepreneur. Because like Dr. Kalpana also mentioned, there's a huge misconception about who is an entrepreneur, who is a business person, and how are these people different, right? Now, if you look at the aim of a typical business person to is to basically create a mechanism where customers will pay for a product, and the business person's goal is to buy or produce, add value, and sell it to an interested customer at a profit. On the other hand, an entrepreneur, uh, what an entrepreneur tries to do is to identify a problem faced by people, or a problem that they see people are facing, and they don't necessarily have a effective solution, or either they don't have a solution at all, or they don't have an effective solution for that, and they make a product or a service in an innovative way to address this problem. So, will the product really work or not is definitely a question, but that is the risk that the entrepreneur will take up, and they take the reward of taking the risk in the form of profit. So, that's about a business person and an entrepreneur. So, next is, how different is a social entrepreneur. So the difference is that, contrasting to both these types of people who are trying to do a business, the social entrepreneur's attempt is primarily to create a product, a service, or any mechanism or a process, we call it, that will benefit a certain group of people in a chosen community. Not necessarily geographically, but also based on different categorizations. So a social entrepreneur's objective is to create and maximize social value, whereas the rest of the business people, or the entrepreneurs, they will try to maximize the profits that they're trying to make. So success of a business person, or an entrepreneur um, who expects business excellence will look at maximizing their profit, so they could increase their capacity, invest in more machinery and other sorts of resources, um, try and look at ways of increasing the opportunities to charge from their customers better, increase the customer base overall. So eventually, at the end of the day, their profit share is growing steadily, and as much as possible. But the success of a social entrepreneur depends mainly on with on the impact they are able to make on the community that they're working with. Uh, let's say, for example, if you have a business that collects raw materials from your local farmers, process, you packet it or bottle it, or you do something with it and sell it, and a share of the revenue that you make, right? Now this is one of the classifications that Dr. Kalpan also mentioned, where you will share the revenue back with those producers. Could either be your own employees or could be farmers coming from the community from whom you buy. Success in this business would be having the ability to share more profits back with this local farmer community. It could be that as a result of that, they have access to better healthcare services, they have access to better education, they have access to better sanitary facilities. The list just goes on and on and on. So the more you can make those available and accessible and enable these communities through your social enterprise, that is where you're looking at success. So now then comes to the question as to why branding is important for a social enterprise, right? Now, as a digital marketing agency, we are really happy because we also get the opportunity, or rather we have chosen to go with the idea of working with social enterprises as well, as much as we work with other types of enterprises. So when it comes to these social enterprises that we are working with as well, some of the services that we give them would be branding, coming up with their digital communication strategy. Now, these sound like very business oriented, profit oriented. You want marketing if you want to sell products and get more customers, right? But that's not necessarily what branding is all about. Branding is basically okay. We'll put it this way. Just look around you, and you will find hundreds of businesses coming up with the label on them where they claim to be social enterprises. Why? I'm not by no means any disrespect to the genuine ones, but you will come across quite a lot of illegitimate social enterprises as well that seem to be a social enterprise, but actually behind the scene they're into something else, right? So even that is the case, you still find quite a lot of social enterprises, so many. And are you focused on child and maternal health, or are you focused about the environment? Are you focused about some sort of community development? It could be empowerment, right? Regardless of whatever this category is, there will be so many different types of social enterprises, and for the people, for the target audience, it could be too overwhelming to which one should I support. Am I to support this one? Am I to buy products from that one? Should I be donating something to this business, right? So it's a part of communication. One thing that is good about social enterprises is that most of the time what we see, I'm not trying to make a statement or generalize it, but most of the time when we look at social enterprises, we see that the founders or the starting individuals of a social enterprise are driven by passion. They see that there is a problem in the society that they live in. They see that they identify that there's a group of people or the environment is negatively or adversely affected by whatever is going on currently, and they try to solve it using a business and make life better for people or the planet. So in such a context, we need to be able to tell people what we are really talking about. What are we doing, right? And we all know the idea of storytelling. Now, for someone who is coming out of passion, they know they're building this business out of their own interest. They want to genuinely help someone or the planet, and they want to communicate this story. This is where branding comes in. So branding is basically a unique identification. And as a business, regardless of whether you are a social enterprise or not, that unique identity is definitely important for you. And that is where you will stand out and say, okay, this is the cause that we are talking about. This is what we represent. And anyone who is interested in supporting us, you can come and tag along with us. So In that sense, branding for a social enterprise is not something new. It's as same as doing branding for another organization, just that we need to be very careful of what we communicate. Um, Now, most of the time, if you look at certain types of social enterprises, they touch quite a lot on the aspect of sympathy. But some of the brands that we work with, we don't necessarily touch on the idea of sympathy, because we don't want people to be helping these communities because they feel sorry for them. We don't want them to come on board and say, oh no, these people don't have food to eat, and that is why we are buying this product. No, we are trying to create a livelihood for those people so that they can stand up on their own feet and have quite a lot of respect towards themselves, dignity, and all those topics. So we don't want to undermine any community whatsoever by any means. So branding in this sense has to be done carefully, and it has to be managed properly so that anything that goes out from our enterprise, it could be the social enterprise, has to be clearly and correctly communicated. So that is where the importance of branding comes in. But if you look at branding in general, do we need branding for a social enterprise? Definitely yes. And what important thing is, how do we be careful about what we communicate? So from your storytelling to all the way to your branding elements, it could be your logos, your taglines, your website, whatever it is, it's really important that we meaningfully create all of these. And in order to meaningfully create those, we need to first do our bit of homework. So this is where you would go into a little bit of research, try to understand what other types of who else is in this domain, particular domain that you would choose. It could be related to empowerment, it could be related to climate change, whatever it is, right? So we do a little bit of research and try to understand who else is there, what are they talking about, and how do we stand out amidst all of these people who are talking about different topics. What's unique about us? We call it a unique selling proposition, right? We try to identify one or two factors which differentiates us from the rest of the social enterprises who are probably talking about the same topic. And then we go and communicate it to the people with our name, with our identity, with the colors, with the fonts and all of that. That is where you will develop the rest of the brand elements. But the core concept around your brand will have to be a very unique idea. So I think that is pretty much the importance, and how we need to approach it. Because if we take the same common approach that we take with any other business with a social enterprise, the chances are that you might communicate something unnecessary that you didn't want to communicate. And that would make or break your social enterprise. So I think that is the importance.
Right. I think very deep and informative explanation about why the branding is something that any social entrepreneur needs to consider, not just perfecting their solution, but also the way how you take that message towards the potential market, and even foreign markets, right, wherever it may be, and how to help the social entrepreneurs to build their brand with that. I think thank you so much for that answer. I think I'll again move back to Dr. Kalpana, because now, being a senior lecturer and talking about social entrepreneurship with students, uh, what sort of a tendency do you see with student community right now toward social entrepreneurship? Do they have an idea, and do they really want to embark upon that journey?
Yeah, Dushyant, if I talk from my experiences, so previously, university students, the idea to become a businessman or an entrepreneur was very lack. It was very less because everybody wanted to join a big corporation and work. So being an independent financially and executing your own ideas and rewarding back, right? That is kind of a fantastic thing that we see, but they did not say that. But now I see there is a trend. Students are moving towards like owning their own business, practicing their own ideas, and being financially independent. And they don't like to work under somebody. And I think the reason for that is this particular environment. So I can see there is a trend. There is a trend of becoming university students to entrepreneurships as well as the businesses. But to tell you honestly, that is not at a satisfactory level. So, especially when it comes to like our topic is today social entrepreneurship, it's not just entrepreneurship. So, when we take the curricula, even the school curricula, even if we take the university curricula, we are not talk about social entrepreneurship much. We are just talking about the entrepreneurship. We are talking about technopreneurship, or anything related to engineering or something innovations. We are talk about it. We are practicing it. We do innovations. We do discoveries at the university level. But we are not actually talking about the social entrepreneurship. But if we take the situation of our country now, the economic situation of our country now, I think this is the time for social entrepreneurship. Therefore, whoever, like those who are initiating, encouraging, supporting entrepreneurial development, I think this is the best direction for them to move. It's not just entrepreneurship because it will support the society. So best way is to the social entrepreneurship. So even when it comes to the university level, I think we must encourage our students to start their own businesses. Could be entrepreneurship or more towards the social entrepreneurship. So why I am saying this is the university students, they have an idea, okay, I would like to become an entrepreneur. But if you look at the course of what they think of, or what is the cause, what is the reason for them to think like that, basically the some of the fake success stories that we are showing and spreading over the social media. Sometimes people are there like having a Lamborghini, driving a Lamborghini. You can have a Lamborghini if you become an entrepreneur. That's this idea is completely wrong, because then we are actually like creating a big competition but without having a core of it or no value of it. But we have to convert our university programs, especially the entrepreneurship development programs at the university level, to educate, to encourage our students to say, okay, you can earn profits, you can earn money by doing good. Because doing good is like you are doing something good to the society and you are doing something good to you. So it's not just earning money, it's earning money plus you are doing something better to the society, better to the world, better to the community. So I think the level what we see now is not at a satisfactory level. We have to include, we have, there are supposed to be some inclusion in the university programs and more towards the social entrepreneurship plus the sustainable entrepreneurship. This is the future even I see. This is the present even I see now. We are supporting the community. We are making a social change. So we have to let the university students, because they are going to serve the country, because they are educated, they will be educated, highly qualified in their own fields. So they need to take the part of this, a part of contributing the economic development of the country and also the social development. And also the other thing is another the concept, another concept, basically it's an opinion we have. Okay, we have to help people, we have to help those who are needy, those who are poor. I think we have to change this idea through the social entrepreneurship. We have to change. It's not about the charity. It's not about like we are getting something from the funding organization and distributing to the poor. No, we have to let the poor community, right? It's not discriminating, but we have to let the poor community to stand up by their own feet. We have to open the space and the opportunities to stand up in the society alone, independent. So then they will be more strong. I think this is what we call, this is what we are expecting as the social transition, this is what we are expecting as the social change. So social entrepreneurship is the best, it can be the best to do this change. But I see the university students, not only university students, even the school curricula, even at the school level, I think we have to start pushing, we have to boost, we have to start boosting the education, more education towards developing the social entrepreneurship.
Right. I think thank you so much for the input, Dr. Kalpana. Very valuable, and for us to understand as well as not only for us, but this is going to be, there needs to be a support system. Right now I believe there's some sort of support system when it comes to the industry, and if somebody wants to become a social entrepreneur, there can be certain institutes which can help. But I think igniting that spark from the school level and university level itself, so that they are ready to become a social entrepreneur, a successful one, by the time they enter into the industry, would be another way to look at. And thank you so much for your valuable input on that. Uh, I'll be giving my other next question towards Ahmad. Ahmad, I want to understand about from the UNDP perspective, and we know that SDGs are very highly like valued within UNDP. What is this perspective of SDGs towards social entrepreneurship? How do they how social is it like something that goes within? Is it something that works hand in hand? Can you maybe shed some insight about it?
Yes. So just before I start, let me just quickly give you all a very quick brief about what SDGs, for those of you who don't know. So SDGs were a set of goals that were agreed by all UN member countries. In 2015, there is 17 goals, which are considered as how do I say it in a very uh, if I can call it like an urgent call for action by all countries, if we can say it that way, right? So these goals have targets, and these targets have indicators, stuff like that. So it can measure how human development is happening in countries, and in social development happens. So to answer your question, Dushanta, social entrepreneurship directly impacts SDGs, right? So when entrepreneurs engage in social innovations, or come up with social innovations, or engage in social enterprises, they are they are directly in some way contributing to the contributing to achieving some of these targets, or the goals that have been set, right? It can be different. I mean, if you just search for SDGs on Google, you'll see the 17 goals that are there. Anything, any social enterprise that's working on the education sector is directly impacting the education related goal. Anything that's working on the health related sector is working on the health related goals. Anything with the environment, you have two or three different goals, life above water, life below water, things like that, right? And even some other things, like, I mean, if you look at the goals, the 17th goal that we have as part of our SDGs is partnerships for development, right? Partnerships is one of the goals. So we also understand that we, as in the SDGs, also understand that to move ahead as a community, as a society, for the world to move ahead, you need to have partnerships, right? So these are things that are all recognized. And when we do as UNDP, when we do programs with related to social entrepreneurship, we heavily focus on SDGs. We try to most of our programs, when we work directly with startups, we try to match each startup with at least three different goals that they're working on, directly or indirectly. It could be directly or indirectly, so that we can in some way see how they are going to make an impact, right? So this is one of the ways that is done. So if for those who are watching this, or listening to this session, this panel, if you would like to know which, you could be a social enterprise, or even you could be a normal non-social enterprise even. You could just Google up the SDGs, go to the different SDG. There is official websites where which you can see all the descriptions. If you can actually, if you go to data.sdg.lk, it's the portal that is maintained by the UN and the Sustainable Development Council in Sri Lanka. which can tell you where Sri Lanka is right now as part of SDGs, right? The data for all different SDGs is there, most of it, and the different targets, the indicators. You can go and see where you match as a startup, to which SDG you match as a startup, right? There are some efforts that we are planning on taking on, trying to uh, help startups also do a similar kind of matching, right? So that they can understand in what way they are making an impact. So these are some of the work that we are trying to work on. So for now, I think for starters, you can go to the site. I think the Ideamart team has posted it on the comments also. So take a look at it and see how you can also see how you're making an impact, I guess. Dushant, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed. I think a new web for me to also refer into when it comes to SDG and how we as Sri Lankans are achieving those SDGs. Thank you for that input. I think I'll move into Purnima as the next question comes. I want to understand, as a social entrepreneur, what sort of risks did you face? What sort of challenges did you face? And how did you mitigate the risks around it? Like, becoming a social entrepreneur is not that easy, as we all know. I mean, not that hard as well, but it's just that you have to be very careful and take your actions. And I'm pretty much sure every social entrepreneur have faced their own different difficulties or obstacles in their journey. I want to know, uh, what were your challenges? How did you overcome those?
Yeah, thank you, Dushyant. So, I want to start by saying, I mean, just like any business, so any sort of entrepreneurship journey, social entrepreneurship is no different. You take risks, you have to test things out, and some things fail, some things work out. So, there is definitely a lot of challenges in the journey. When it comes to like our work, I think I'll highlight a couple of challenges and some examples. So, one of the biggest challenges that we've seen throughout our work is resistance. So, I mean, this is normal for any sort of anyone who's trying to create any sort of change in society. There is always resistance to change and for anything. And when you're a social entrepreneur, you can always accept a level of resistance. So, I think this is where one of the things. Previous panelists also mentioned that your methodology is your work. You have to look at what's happening, you have to look at the problem. So you have to have, as a social entrepreneur, I believe that your work and your models and methodologies have to be based on solid research and reasoning, especially because you have to face a lot of resistance. So in the face of that, for you to be able to prove that okay, this works, this is a problem, then you need that um, foundational work before you go out or expand or anything like that. And I have some good examples of that. Actually, when it comes to Girls in Technology project, when we first started, and what we're trying to do with Girls in Technology is bring more women into technology, because we don't have enough women in technology due to the existing gender norms in society related to women and tech or women and STEM. So one of the biggest challenges also we had was this existing gender norms. So a good story would be like, actually we were talking to a very higher up official about our initiative, and the comment we got was, "Why are you focusing on girls? Why can't you focus on boys?" Um, and also there was times when people asked us, why do women have to be in technology, can't they do something else? So these are like actual quotes that people have asked us. So before we even start solving the problem, we had to go and prove that our problem is a problem. And also and especially in this comment, when the person asked us like, why can't you focus on boys, so we have to go beyond like our scope and actually like explain what equity means, because that's what we are doing. We are using equitable education strategies to as a tool to improve diversity in the sector. So we have to like go on, like give them details on what is equity, what is equitable education, and how actually having diversity in technology sector would create more economic opportunities for women, and then in return benefit everyone. So then only like people have an idea, oh okay, this is a problem. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons, like biggest challenges that any social enterprise would face, in the resistance that they would get when they're trying to change anything. And another thing I want to highlight is, if you look at a social entrepreneur, what they're trying to do is solve a problem that is not solved in existing mechanisms and systems. um, I mean, that's what we basically do. We identify a gap which is not solved already. So the thing that comes with that is, we are trying to create change through new ideas, but we don't know if the idea would work. And because you work with people, especially with social enterprises, most of the time we are directly working with people. So different people have different cultural, economic, social differences within communities as well as among each other. So this is also a challenge, even like we face with every initiative that we start. Like how do we know this would work? So as a mitigation strategy for this, one of the things that we always do is we do pilot projects. So any idea that we have, before we go big and we kind of involve the wider community, we do small pilot tests in different communities to see, okay, is this idea viable? And the other thing is, we have a continuous strategy of getting feedback from our beneficiaries. So I think that's another thing that is very important for social entrepreneurs to understand, because at the end of the day, you have to create benefits for your beneficiaries. Your programs should be based on your beneficiaries' needs, not what you want to do, because that's where you're creating the change. So it is very important to have feedback from your beneficiaries, and also be open to change your strategies accordingly. So basically the programs have to be dynamic, at least in the beginning of your the programs. Of course throughout it has to be dynamic, but in the beginning you have to have a continuous feedback loop to see, okay, so if this working, is this changing lives? If not, you come back, you change your strategy, and you try again. um, and the okay, so that's one of the challenges. And another challenge is, I mean, bringing your work into policies. So this we have struggled with for years, because the Sri Lankan social sector, not just social enterprises and NGOs and all the other entities in the social sector are doing really good work, and they have new innovative methodologies and models. However, it's very difficult to incorporate these well tested models. Even they have results, even if it's so innovative, it's very hard to incorporate in, into existing policies and existing systems, because of the bureaucracy that exists in a country like Sri Lanka. So like in our experience, we've tried, I mean, we've been doing this work for a while. Anytime we even want to go talk to someone, they don't want to listen to us. Or because, oh, you're an NGO, that there's this, there's this whole very negative image around social development or NGOs in Sri Lanka. So that, and so all of this, for this particular challenge, I do not have a solution yet. We're still looking. But I think that's also a really big challenge that social enterprises feel, because we create these methodologies and we test them, but then there's a limit that you can go up to. So unless there are policy changes in the wider range, it's very difficult to create change. So I think that is also one of the major challenges that social entrepreneurs are facing.
All right. Thank you so much for that input. I think another thing that I think we all have been experiencing is that the concept of a question that they ask is that why fix it when it's not broken? Uh, Basically, most of the community does not believe about the continuous evolvement or continuous improvement, which is the core of a proper evolving society, and how social entrepreneurship or social entrepreneurs will be moving forward. It's not a one time overnight. You are not going to build a 100% perfect product. It's going to be something that you will be doing for a long time, whether it's social entrepreneurship or whether it's a simple business. It's the same way, right? Even building product is same. So thank you so much for that input, and I want to move into Ms. Chamatka next. Uh, so I think I'm going to ask a question from your professional perspective, being an attorney at law. Uh, what is the support system available in Sri Lankan context from legal point of view for a social entrepreneur? How are they protected? Because that is a kind of a confidence that you need to boost into for social entrepreneurs to get into the arena, because when they know that they are safe over in that particular playground, they will go and play around it, right? So what kind of a support system is around? What is your insight about that?
Thank you for that question, Dushanta. And I think I resonate with a lot of the ideas that were presented by the other panelists with regard to structural barriers or just social norms changing. So, like I said, firstly, for entrepreneurs, let alone social entrepreneurs, to emerge, you need social norms and conceptions to change, be it around what kind of employment is best, or around women working or women being entrepreneurs. And then you have certain structural barriers with regard to accessing finances or simple infrastructure like having mobile signal, as you saw in certain areas in my district. Another aspect, social entrepreneurs or someone looking to come up find solutions to a new idea would come up with is the legal impediments, or what support you could get legally, be it when setting up your business, registering a business, what documentation you need, what kind of business you want to set up. Would you want to just start as a sole proprietor or make it a registered partnership? Then you'd have to access your local divisional secretariat. Is the environment within state officers in Sri Lanka conducive to businesses being registered? How long does it take? How easy is the process? These are all questions we must ask. Or are you going to register it as a limited liability or a company limited by guarantee, with eventually hoping to take it public? These are all questions with regard to registration. And also, you need certain basic documents, especially if you're dealing with things like agriculture. You need to have, and you have land, you need to have deeds. A lot of people in this country don't have access to deeds, so that there are major legal impediments people face even before starting up a business or an enterprise. I think Purnima raised this quite well. You are usually finding a gap in the market, and you are usually the first person to find a solution to that problem in most cases. And then all the challenges you face are also unique and novel to you sometimes, including the legal challenges you face. There might not be a nuanced model that fits your business within the Sri Lankan context, given the limited availability of how you can present or register one's business. Like, even if you go to the company's house, what are the options that are available? Also, if you are running a business where the consumer is involved, when there is an end consumer, what are the consumer protection laws in Sri Lanka? Do you abide by them? What are the different agencies you have to go to get certain accreditations? Is that an easy process? So those are questions we must raise. Also, when it comes to um, contracts, legally binding documents, are people aware of the need for those? Are people, because I have seen a culture in Sri Lanka as a practicing lawyer also, that people are often scared of approaching things in a legal manner. They'd rather be it being informal than formal, because they think of the high cost of litigation and approaching lawyers, whereas in the long run you'd find that it is more advantageous to your business to have it legally covered. And then when it comes to something new, we think about intellectual property. Do people adequately understand the importance of intellectual property protection in this country, be it patents, copyrights, trademarks, registrable things like that, or things that you don't need to register? Do people, let's say there is a new innovation or process, do people know that they have to, in order for it to be able to get patent protection, do people know that they need to register it with the patent office first before they commercially present the product or the service to one's end customers? Do people understand that? Also, let's say you are building a small business that also helps your community, also gives back to the environment, and you have named it something beautiful, and you have built a lot of goodwill, only to realize someone else has stolen that goodwill through registering the same name, and they are registered and you are unregistered. They have the legal protection. So it's little things like that, that people don't usually think of in terms of trademark and copyright. Do people know that um, an original artistic work um, gets copyright protection automatically, and that that copyright protection has a moral value as well as an economic value? So those are all things we look at as lawyers, and I think if there are creative minds in this country, as there are increasingly, because we increasingly have an environment that's conducive to these things, legal protection also must improve at that pace. Also, even in accessing finances, are people aware of the drawbacks of microfinance? Are people aware that there are registered institutions under the central bank to get microfinance, so that people don't get caught to loan sharks? These are all things that people must look into when engaging in entrepreneurship, business, social entrepreneurship. Also, labor laws. If you're looking to employ people, what are the labor laws like in this country? Are they progressive? Are they regressive? We saw in the budget this year, we once again spoke about how Sri Lanka's labor laws are regressive, need to change to laws being laws that are more conducive to entrepreneurs, investment, and business. Also, taxation. Sri Lanka right now has a tax structure that's purely based on increasing government revenue. Is that conducive to a startup? Is that conducive to someone preparing to start up a social entrepreneur, a sole proprietorship, and not register their business, and then come under a very high income tax bracket, and then you're starting to be taxed at as low as 100,000? Is that a conducive environment to entrepreneurship? Also, in terms of, as you grow, and as your goodwill grows, as your profit grows, as your impact grows, there will also be litigation that comes about. How do you resolve disputes? Are there adequate alternate dispute resolution procedures set up in Sri Lanka? We know for a lot of big businesses, they don't really go to Sri Lankan court or conduct arbitration within Sri Lanka. Even you often choose the United Kingdom or Singapore, because it is the ease of doing things, and then there's no time lag, and it is a way more efficient system. So is our legal system, is our litigation system ready for the emergence of new entrepreneurs that will hopefully not even grow within the country but globally? So those are some of the issues that I touched on as fast as I could. If there is anyone listening in who needs specific advice with regard to whatever they are doing, I'd be happy to speak to anyone.
Thank you so much, Chamatka, and thank you so much for the offer. I think something that everybody can gain a benefit out of is the insight that you shared, as well as the help that you offer at the end. I think thank you so much for that. Next question goes to Akila. Uh, so it starts somewhere, right? It starts somewhere. Basically, voluntary work. Myself being in this voluntary ecosystem in Sri Lanka in IT perspective, for me, but voluntary work ecosystem, how does that help someone to be a better social entrepreneur? Is there a correlation? Is there a kind of a path being guided through voluntary ecosystem to be a better social entrepreneur?
Yes, Dushant, I think that's a very interesting question because I could share quite a few of my personal experiences and some of the definitely some of the examples from my circles because uh, to be honest, getting into structured volunteerism happened to me about probably about 8 years ago. So, anyone in the audience, if you have heard of this organization that is called Rotract is it's an organization that pretty much builds the skills of the youth, helps them network, and also get themselves involved in different sorts of um, uh, socially benefiting initiatives, not necessarily charity projects. So there's quite a diversity in terms of the activities the road tractors do. But what really interested me was the part that benefits the society out of our activities. Whatever the efforts that we take, if it's benefiting the society, that is what really attracted me into this movement. So luckily or unluckily, I don't know if any road tractors are watching, they can say I was able to lead this movement of about 7,000, 8,000 young individuals during the last 1 year. And to come to that, there was quite a lot of I would really take it as quite an extensive training during these 7 years is where I led my club. I was able to communicate with different parties in the community, different network with different individuals, and build my connections in order to support whoever is around me. And like I said, about 7 or 8 years of structured volunteer experience, and then a little bit more than that in terms of volunteer activities, getting involved with different organizations and doing my work. Um, while that was happening parallelly, on the other side, what I was studying was marketing and digital marketing, gaining my experience in the field of digital marketing. So I was looking at areas where we could put these things together. That is why some of the clients that we take on board also are in the lines of social enterprises or non-governmental organizations that are in the development sector, and likewise. Now, for example, some of the businesses that or rather some of the social enterprises that we work with are related to agriculture and economic community and economic development, women empowerment and community and economic development. There's another one on gender-based violence. So likewise, there's quite a few. And what I really see about these organizations also is that either the founders or the main people involved in these businesses are coming with the background of volunteer experience, and they have really got them invested in those activities, and they're looking at how they could take back the benefits of these projects, not necessarily completely through volunteerism, but also in gaining all the parties that are involved with a financial benefit as well. That is why I specifically said most of them are into the community and economic development, which is also one of my interest areas as well. My one of my experience was when I was an undergraduate. We organized a project called Bus, and the moment you hear the word bus, for most people in our community, the picture is a man. But this project that we did was primarily focused on women empowerment, and not necessarily uh, have sessions and workshops just for the girls, but also for the boys, because a significant part of women empowerment has to be played by the men as well in our community. And if we don't accept, if we are not ready for that change, the systematic change, because in most places it's not that the women don't have the capacity, or the women don't have the ability or the knowledge and the skills. It's that the system is not enabling women to come to a higher position and remain there. It's making life difficult for them, the system itself. So that is what we need to break. And in order to do that, just getting the women involved separately and just getting the men involved separately does not work. So I'm just bringing out examples of throughout the journey, right? So now this project was focused on, okay, we raised awareness. We wanted to educate the student community within the university on how important it is to understand and accept this idea of equal opportunities for everyone and equity. And there's quite a lot of topics that are revolving around it. And then eventually we went into a process of helping out a particular home where there were disabled women, and we were able to. So these women make handicraft items, and they just sell it. They just go from place to place as individual vendors, and they just sell off 1 or 2 items a day. That's it. That's their income source. So what we were able to do was we brought them to one of the exhibitions. We showed them different opportunities, and they were really excited to see and be among the others who are really making some money out of the work that they do. They were, from one side, they were motivated through that, and from the other side, we were also able to connect them with some exporters, and then give them a more sustainable way of generating revenue for their entire home. So there were about 15-20 ladies in that home. So all of them are benefiting out of that. So this is the same sort of knowledge and experience that I was able to gather throughout these 7 to 8 years, which I brought into my workplace, where with the clients that we work with, it's not only just the conceptualizing that we do, but also we support them in terms of how can you reach out to different target audiences with using digital platforms and all of that, right? So while all that is happening, definitely I feel like volunteer work is a motivating factor for most of us to get into this field, because it exposes us to the problems in the society. If I don't think if I was not involved in these volunteer activities throughout the past few years, I would see this side of the society, where some people. When I say I wouldn't have seen this side of the society, I'm not talking from a perspective of feeling sorry for anyone, right? What I see is hidden talent, opportunities that have not been explored yet, and so many different new avenues for people to explore. These kind of new opportunities don't it doesn't necessarily always just occur to people, especially if you have not been exposed to it, if you don't have the basic knowledge about it. Now, like Dr. Kalpana also mentioned, our education system doesn't necessarily facilitate this. From childhood, we are all trained to become employees. There's two sides to it. I don't necessarily also agree with everyone becoming entrepreneurs as well. Not that I have anything against that. If you are interested, by all means, go ahead and be one. But it's not everyone's cup of tea as well. But that does not mean we should not teach it. Not everyone is going to be a banker, but we will learn a little bit of banking and finance related topics. We will learn a little bit of taxation. We'll learn a bit of during our O-level times, we would learn a little bit of chemistry and physics, but not everyone's going to be a chemist, right? Not everyone's going to go to NASA and go to the moon or Mars or whatever, right? But we all learn bits and pieces. So I think that little bit of knowledge has to be given, and not just the volunteer work, but also through our education system that has to be fed into our heads to look at the wider community, the wider society, and look at more opportunities. Because this is not an area where you would run at a loss at any given point. You can have very successful, very creative and innovative social enterprises that would benefit your people that are working with you, the community, and everyone else around you. So the good thing about experience in volunteer work is that you get hands-on experience. You go into those communities, you work with those people, you talk to them, you talk their language. And when I say language, we are not necessarily talking about Sinhala or Tamil or English or whatever the language, right? What do they really think? What perception do they have about the rest of the society? Now, we would have one perspective about the society, but we can go there and look at from their perspective, what do they see? Do they see, houses with air conditions, including their washrooms, or are they seeing houses where they would like to be at, or else are they only looking at the kinds of houses that are in their background and their surroundings? Sometimes they have no clue whatsoever what sort of a life people might be living in a town, or in an urban city, right? So sometimes they don't have access to the internet, they don't have access to technology, they don't have access to social media, and most of these people, even if they try to come up with an idea, they are not able to communicate it, because digital channels don't work if you don't have internet in the first place, if you don't have electricity. These are problems that needs to be solved from ground up. And that experience that I gained through volunteerism opened my eye to a great extent to understand what's going on in the society. So I think that is where I'm coming from, and bringing in that knowledge and experience has given me the opportunity to also work, not through Arts Lab, but also separately on a personal level with different entities and organizations, including some of the top companies, in terms of consulting them in terms of some of their projects. How can they align their projects with different sustainable development goals? I think Ahmad is quite an expert on sustainable development goals, because they are pretty much directly attached to all of this. From my perspective, the experience that I've gained through volunteerism has always been a positive and an advantage. So anyone who is looking at a social enterprise, I think, if you could, you don't necessarily have to join an organizer, like a formal organization, but you can be a part of any project that is going on somewhere and get a little bit of exposure before you straight away go and jump into a social enterprise and start a business as such. But try get some hands-on experience, be a part of a project or two, get some experience, go into a couple of places. You will get a lot more insights and knowledge about what's going on.
Right. Wonderful input. I think summarizing it, number one is networking. I mean, getting to know more people, and how, like, building the network around you, right? That ecosystem will definitely help you, and it will always allow you to match make also while you are providing a particular solution. And also, like, the volunteerism, I think, will be helping any individual to confidently stand up and move forward and take that journey, embark upon that journey pretty confidently. I think it's very important. My particular experience on volunteerism is also the same. It's always the good that you see, and the contextual problem that you see in the community while you are volunteering will always help you to understand certain solutions as well. Thank you so much for that input, Akila. I think I'll move into the next question. Dr. Kalpana, I think starting a social entrepreneurship or enterprise is hard but achievable, right? That's the entry point, the stepping stone. But sustaining while you are delivering a value to the community or society, uh, you have to build a proper value proposition, build a proper business model around it, and sustaining. That is the key if you are in this game for the long term, long run. How can we help? How can somebody sustain their enterprise if they are in long run?
Okay, Dashanta, yeah, uh, when it comes to managing, sustaining our entrepreneurship, it's a challenge because it is a norm. Theoretically, scientifically, it has proved that every startups, like the startups which are having less than 5 years of the lifespan, is vanish within the first 5 years. So that is in the percentage of it is 20%. So globally, it's 20% of the startups dying within the first 5 years. So what's the reason for this? Even when we take the startups, entrepreneurships, and the social entrepreneurship, I think social entrepreneurships are more challengeable than normal entrepreneurships, because entrepreneurship is anyway taking a challenge. But I think social entrepreneurship is having a bit bigger risk than the normal entrepreneurship. You know why? uh, Social entrepreneurships are basically depend on the much more predictions. They are come up with the solutions based on many assumptions and the predictions. For example, climate change, food shortage, renewable energy solutions. So these are the things can be happen in the future. So we are looking for some solutions. We are changing the society towards the betterment of the future and aid in the future issues which we assume that they are coming up. So we are having the bigger risk. So social entrepreneurs are having the bigger risk. Therefore, the financial risk is high. So we know that many of the entrepreneurship, like one of the categories, charity organizations and NGOs, they are funded by the donor organizations, funders, sponsors are there. So then even the investors are there. So investors are a little bit reluctant to fund this kind of by having this kind of a risk. So it's a bigger risk for them. So we don't know what will happen in the future. So then financially, social owners, entrepreneurship should be more stronger. They have to have a stable financial gain. So, for example, like kind of an exchange of the capital, it means the good and the income should be based on providing some goods and services. So that is where we have to lead the social entrepreneurship towards the profit orientation while we are making an impact to the society. So then they themselves, the organization itself, they are more secure financially. So they don't need to 100% depends on their donors and the funders. So they have something in their own. They are creating something in their own. For example, this is a very simple example for social entrepreneurship. There are homeless people around you, and you can start a restaurants, and you can provide employment opportunities to those homeless people and trying to enhance their quality of the life and doing something or try to change the society that they are living in, changing their living standards. So this is something like you are creating, you are providing a service, you are offering a product or a service, and you have an income. So you are more secured financially. So then you don't need to show that your financial risk to your investors. So 50-50, you are secure in this way. And the another one is like Dushant mentioned very clearly, your business model. So in the business model, that is the overall picture of your business, what you are going to do in your business. That has your all the revenue streams, that has all the costings of every and each aspects of your organization, and the value proposition. You mention your strategy, vision, your goals, what are the key resources, everything in this big picture. So through your business model, you should be able to deliver a unique uh, idea to the society. You should be able to change the society in a different way. So then you are more secure. Why? You are different, you are unique. So your business model should be very unique therefore. So you have to the Purnima mentioned very clearly, your beneficiaries, you have to pay more attention to your beneficiaries. So the value proposition is very important. Creating a better value proposition which will highly impact on the community group that you are aiming, right, is very important. And the other thing is the again the Dushanta mentioned about it, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I'm sorry about the background noise. Entrepreneurial ecosystem, that is basically like we call this what is this entrepreneurial ecosystem is kind of individual factors or reactions which can have a direct or indirect impact on our entrepreneurship creations and the growth basically. So then even including finance, the culture, even the human resource. So all the required, all the important aspects, all the key resources required for a organization, required for a business are very important. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, we see some of the even infrastructure development and all. So some of the parts of the ecosystem is not very well developed. So they are very necessary to develop. Then the most important thing is the culture. Our culture isn't supporting very much in entrepreneurial development. Why I'm saying that is we have to have a cultural norm to support the business development, entrepreneurship development, and doing something good to the society. And we don't have like enough sufficient success stories about social entrepreneurship in our context. I don't know how many, if we talk to the few of the youth, if you talk to a few of school kids, we don't know how many of them are very well aware about the social entrepreneurship or about the social entrepreneurs. So we have to develop this culture. So then the having a good idea about the entrepreneurial culture is very important. So I think the individuals, or those who are already engaged in the social entrepreneurship, they have to play this big role, like creating the awareness about the entrepreneurship. So another important thing is, like Purnima mentioned this as well, the research. So research will support you to come up with a better idea. Research will come up with research will help you to find a solution for an existing problem. So then research will research will assist you or discover kind of a social issue that the attention is highly required. So research and development is again an important thing. So even if you are an entrepreneur, even if you are a social entrepreneur who is already running a social entrepreneurship, you have to include this research very properly. And also Akila mentioned very clearly the networking. You have to have a very strong network. You have to develop a very strong network. Inclusion of all the stakeholders, those who are interested in your your business activity, and also you should be able to provide the feedback to them, and you have to share the knowledge. So you have to create a knowledge sharing platform between among your network members. So these things will help you more. And also there are supposed to be proper coaching systems, coaching, mentoring, mentoring the mechanisms to support, help, empower those who are joining the social entrepreneurship in future. So if we have a very strong foundation like this, having a good the strong ecosystem, the proper research and development, strong network facilities, and also by knowing what you are going to do, having the innovative business models, I think we can survive well.
uh, Summarizing into it, I think lack of awareness and lack of education around the social entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship is something that we need to recover from and remedy on upon. Because if you ask about a business model, it's always about paid customers. So it's always about you buy from the first point itself. But there are other business strategies where you can go for freemium, you can go for subscription, you can go for any other sponsored mechanisms. So there are other ways of running a social entrepreneurship, sorry, social enterprise in these ecosystems. I think these are this knowledge and the awareness about these things is what we need to give and share to the young generations to come, so that they are ready with the proper weapon to take social entrepreneurship into the right side. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Kalpana. I think I'm moving forward to Ahmed. Ahmad, I'm going to ask a question from you with regard to your experience throughout last 10, 11, 12 years about the support ecosystem, right? How important, and uh, if somebody wants to be a social entrepreneur, what are the support systems that are available in this country to help him or her uh, in social entrepreneurship perspective?
Yeah, Dushant, you can hear me, right?
Yes, you are loud
Okay,
and clear.
thanks. Sorry if I break up during the time. There is a power cut here, so I might the network connection is also not so stable. Anyway, I think also I haven't been in the ecosystem for more than 10 years, not 11, 12. Definitely, no, I'm not that old, right? So yeah, I think I'll start from where Dr. Kalpana. I think with some comments that Dr. Kalpana made. Our support ecosystem, I think, is not yet there. right? There is a big gap in the support ecosystem as far as I can see over the last several years, which I have been working in this ecosystem, right? Uh, in my personal opinion, uh, we are all making one mistake, right? We are trying to build a house without building the foundation. That's something that we are all doing. Uh, what do I mean by that, right? Uh, if there is a lot of sorry, can you all hear me? Did I get cut off?
There are some breakpoints, but you are now continuously. We can hear you.
Okay, right. Yeah. So what I was saying is, yeah, there is a gap in the ecosystem on what's happening, right? So what I mean is, we are all trying to build a house without building the foundation. Which what do I mean by that is, um, there is a lot of support organizations working in Sri Lanka in different parts of Sri Lanka. In terms of supporting entrepreneurs, right? But I don't see too many people working on the fact of creating awareness, or trying to support early stage or idea stage entrepreneurs, right? Now, if you take some of the work that I have been doing with my team here at UNDP, we have been doing something called the ideation sessions around the country, right? Where we just go and talk to them about entrepreneurship, listen to what they're trying to do, just their ideas, what they have, ask them what do you have in mind. Is it something worthwhile for them to explore? Give them that opportunity to listen to them. Some of these guys might have some very crazy random ideas. You never know what are they trying to do. But the problem is, no one seems to be listening to these guys, right? Whoever these people are. Mainly, when you go move out of Colombo, when you move out of the urban areas, very few people are working in these areas, right? So that's something that has to be built. That's something that has to be improved, right? There is no point supporting existing entrepreneurs and making them even better if you don't have a next level or next set of entrepreneurs who are going to come into the ecosystem in the next couple of years, right? What will happen is, we would have just uh, built the existing companies, we would have made them better, and then we wouldn't have be having new startups coming out. This is true for social entrepreneurship as well as non-social entrepreneurship also, right? So I think that's something. I think anyone who's listening in, if you are a part of an organization who's working supporting startups,
I think we lost Ahmad for a moment. I think we'll get back to that question, Ahmad, with the time when time permits and you are back in a proper network connection. Uh, I think the core concept of what Ahmad wanted to highlight is that the basic foundation of the whole infrastructure and the ecosystem needs to be built. And then what Ahmad was highlighting is that uh, it's not always about first line of entrepreneurs who we are trying to escalate and take them into next levels, but also you need to understand that we need to build a next layer and then another layer, so that there's always from buddies to scale up level entrepreneurs, it's always available in the ecosystem. I think that's what I think Ahmed essentially wanted to highlight. Ahmed, are you there back again? Or all right, we'll give some time to Ahmed. Until then, I think I'll get back to the next question. Purnima, being a social entrepreneur, what are the things you need to look out for?
Okay. Yeah.
um
So
yeah, I am back, but I don't know how strong the connection. Can you hear me?
Okay, Ahmed, we can hear you, but we'll go to the Purnima's question, Purnima's answer, and then we'll
no,
get back to
Hello?
Ahmed.
Ahmed can finish, then I can go. It's
Okay,
fine.
Ahmed, can you hear us? I think Ahmed is having sort of a issue. We'll go ahead with Purnima and then we'll
Okay.
get back to Ahmed. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So first of all, I want to talk about this like opportunities that exist for social entrepreneurs. So basically, if you look at a social entrepreneur, an opportunity for social entrepreneur does not exist as an opportunity. They actually, like, out there, opportunities for social entrepreneurs exist as problems and gaps. So I think one of the most important things, even like if someone wants to become a social entrepreneur, is to develop this. I mean, not just social entrepreneur, just like any entrepreneur, they need to develop this entrepreneurial mindset where they can create insights on how these problems and gaps that exist could be opportunities when everyone else is just complaining about it. So I think that's one of the main things that as a social entrepreneur should develop, is like how to identify a gap and how to identify the opportunities within it. So a good example for this, again, I would bring from like our work. So with COVID-19, like everything shut down. So we predominantly work with schools and school students and university students, like education organizations. So all of them shut down, and pretty much the entire country shut down with the first wave of COVID. And as next gen, we were actually able to change our strategies very quickly and make COVID 19, that 2 years, into a growth opportunity for us. And actually, in the past 2 years, we have expanded our operations like never before. So, as an organization, we saw an opportunity where young people didn't have anything to do, and internet connections were, because of online classes and all of that, internet connections were uh, like there were more internet connections, and so there was a lot of opportunities within that problem that we all face. So next gen was able to, you like, identify those opportunities and get the most out of it. So I think that's one of the big things as an entrepreneur, that should look at shifting your thought process into identifying opportunities within problems and gaps. And the other thing is, so again, I would go into our work. So about 6 years ago, we were doing a initiative called App Smart, and at the same time, Dialogue Idea Mart was pushing innovation and IoT heavily. So we saw that, we actually reached out to Idea Mart, and we were able to partner with Idea Mart for that particular initiative and many other initiatives after that. And because that is because we had a shared interest in mobile technology as well as IoT. So since then, we've done again different projects. So we were able to create partnerships with other organizations with shared interests. So another places to look for opportunities for social entrepreneurs is look for shared interests with private sector organizations, government, other social enterprises. Because I think Akila and Dr. Kalpana also mentioned this, like the networking part of this. Because at the end of the day, your goal is to solve a problem. So instead of going and doing it alone, it's very easy to go with some, couple of other people who has the same interest. So I think creating partnerships is also something social entrepreneurs should look at when they're trying to, go towards their mission. And again, Dr. Kalpana also mentioned this funding. So there is a lot of organizations that are like dependent on funding, and I have to say, globally there is a limitation of funding, especially with COVID-19, companies, scaling down now because of the economic situation in the world. So more and more there is a limitation of funding for the social sector in general. And there is actually a wave of social sector kind of trend in social sector where they're trying to best be less dependent on funding. So one of the things I think coming up, entrepreneurs that are coming up, I would say, look at ways where you can diversify your revenue, um, and even to generate funding. So let's say if you are going to raise funding even predominantly from donors, that is where the things Akila mentioned comes in. Branding is very important. You have to tell your story, and have results, share your impact stories. So that you should, I think social entrepreneurs should focus on that, and as well as not just depending on donors, which expanding, having a proper business plan. So then if you do have a proper business plan, you can look at, okay, these are our costs, this is what we need, even to run our basic operations. So then diversify your revenue streams either by selling something, providing services, because even as a social enterprise within your organization, there are expertise that you can provide as services to other organizations. So that is something that we do with other social entrepreneurs, because we are a technology based social enterprise. So we do provide technology knowledge and services to other social enterprises that doesn't have as um, much level of expertise. So things like this, you can find ways to utilize your resources to diversify your revenue streams. So even if you don't have funding, um, your business or your enterprise would still be able to carry out your operations. So this is where having proper business plan and running the social enterprise like a business comes into play. And the final thing that I want to highlight is sustainability. This is actually a big problem that I see in a lot of initiatives that's happening in Sri Lanka. We see a lot of social related initiatives starting, but we don't see a continuous growth or longevity of those programs. This is mainly because, I mean, it it's good to start programs, but if it doesn't matter if you can't continue to create that change over a long period of time and impact more people. So I think another area that social entrepreneurs should look at is designing your business, or designing your methodologies to sustain a period of time. Again, I think Chamatka also mentioned this. This is where it comes into, having your organization registered and doing proper accounting and due diligence. This actually applies to getting donor funding as well, because if your organization isn't registered, you have very little chance of getting funding. Having a business plan, just like a corporate business, and in addition to all of that, I think a aspect that we kind of overlooked is building your team. Like a social enterprise is like, a lot of you mentioned, is very much powered by passion and wanting to change things. And if you have a solid team, you have volunteers, if you build your market position, you build your networks, uh, then it would help you ensure your program sustainability over a long period of time. So yeah, so those are the things that I want to highlight, to look out for when going into social entrepreneurship.
Wonderful. I think for anyone who would like to embark upon the journey of social entrepreneurship, I think you gave more than enough inputs on how to take the steps carefully. Uh, Chamatka, I think this will be your last question also. We talked about the product, we talked about the people. Now we want to talk about the process or the policies or the regulatories or the regulations in such sense, because that's where we will define a framework so that things will be done in a proper manner, right? How important is it on where we need to focus when it comes to bringing policies in social entrepreneurship?
Thank you, Dushanta, for that question. I think without duplicating what the very valuable views that were presented by the four other panelists, I think Sri Lanka really needs to think about, if we are to promote more private sector work, if we are to promote entrepreneurship, do we have a regulatory environment that's acceptable, that accommodates entrepreneurs in this country? At the moment, a lot of the laws, regulations, policies we have are quite archaic, and aren't interconnected. As in, even some of the work that's being done that you all mentioned, what the work the UNDP is doing, Ideamart is doing, ADB is funding certain female entrepreneurs. Then there is a lot of ESG funding coming into the country, at least pre economic crisis. There is, everyone I feel like is working in silos, and there is a lack of coordination in what is happening. I think the gentleman from the UNDP initially mentioned no one has thought about starting young. Why aren't we tapping into young students? I know you all are doing it, young students at a very young age, and inculcating a mindset um, to encourage young people to be entrepreneurs. Not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur, but not everyone's going to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. That's what we need to realize in this country, and that no, not all people are going to get government sector work. And increasingly we have a government sector of 1.4 million people, and that is increasingly seen as unsustainable. So while the government retracts, the private sector needs to expand. So there is a large space for entrepreneurship, not just entrepreneurship, with sustainable financing. The world is focusing on sustainable financing initiatives, um, focused on the environment, focused on culture, focused on society. So there is a lot of funding available. It's just learning how to tap into that funding. So the government needs to really look into creating a regulatory environment where people have access to capital, people have adequate access to infrastructure, and also have the requisite laws within which they can thrive. Also, even if you see Sri Lanka's business culture, entrepreneurial culture, it is very much very protectionist. We need to move beyond that. And if entrepreneurs need certain imports, they need to be able to access that. If you need to access global markets, you need to be able to access that, because right now we are sort of toads in a pond in a sense, especially rural youth, when it comes to rural youth and women. So I think, as a whole, even this time's budget, there was a lot of conversation around creating entrepreneurship hubs. There's always a lot of conversation around agri-technology, increasing youth employment through entrepreneurship, etc. But very few of these policies are actually implemented, and I think there is a lack of political will in this country to do things. But I feel like increasingly people are having very important policy conversations also, especially young people, young educated people. So, and also, I think Akila spoke about volunteerism, and I engage in. Um, I work with a foundation. I work in a found. I'm a director of a foundation myself. So some of the work we do while we help the community, while we look at how to help women who are subject to abuse or are are discriminated against. We also, another angle of our work is actually pushing for policy reform. So I think it is imperative that those in the market right now, especially um, people like Purnima or Akila or so established social entrepreneurs, actually give their expertise in making policy, because one of the things that are lacking, especially with anything in Sri Lanka, is monitoring and evaluation, as in follow up. There is no follow up in a lot of things. You will implement something and say, "Oh, we changed the lives of 1,000 women," and then 5 years on, about 999 of them have gone into something else. Their businesses have failed. They've failed to secure finances in the long run. So we need to keep evaluating, keep monitoring, and tweaking our policies to suit very ever changing needs. So government needs to be dynamic and act as a facilitator rather than own everything and try to run businesses. And that is I believe that that is the future of this country. Thank you very much to Ideamart for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Shamaka, for that input. I think uh, that makes sense. I mean, in Sri Lankan context, uh, how easy it is to get things done if you are an entrepreneur or if you're a social entrepreneur, and it's not that easy maybe sometimes, right? So maybe certain policies and process will help and set certain guidance for anybody to get things done in a much faster manner. Thank you so much for that input. I think next question goes to Akila. A bit of a shift from the question that we have been discussing before. I want to speak about uh, accessing new markets and networking and going beyond borders. How important is it? What can we do? How do we do it? Thoughts?
Of course, Dushanta. So, to be honest, I think we touched on the importance of networking in a couple of
that
instances.
that we spoke in the initial instance. I think we can talk about the accessing new markets and how
Yes,
we can
exactly.
move forward in that perspective.
Certainly, certainly. But also, I'd like to add a little more on the networking part, because I feel like, in my personal opinion, and out of the experience that I've gained out of working with different social enterprises, volunteer organizations, and so on, one of the key components, or rather, I would probably consider as one the most important component, is the network. Because for us to get started, the initial network, because most of the time we will have different parties to deal with, different stakeholders to deal with. There will be authorities, there will be different sorts of funding parties, it could be donors, it could be investors, anyone. When I speak of social enterprise, I don't necessarily look at only a donor community, or purely a business community where you come in with investments and all that. But in reality, it's a mix of all this, right? So if you look at a social enterprise, it's a combination of so many people, but who believes in a common vision. And in order to get all these people into a common ground, convince them, or rather communicate to them that something like this is going on and we are working on some project like this. Are you interested in taking part in something like this? Is going to be a common discussion among multiple parties. So in order to get there, building your network, knowing who to approach, or you say, it's always important to know someone who will know someone, and that network will always keep you closer and access to all sorts of resources. And out of that, one part is going out of this market, right? You try to expand into new markets, you try to expand and explore new market opportunities. In doing that, of course, when you step into a new market, the same theories apply. Just because you are a social enterprise, I mean, if you are really lucky, if you have the good network, you are going to be welcome. If not, you have to make your way through into a new market. You have to work on it. You have to probably at least work on the network side, network building, right? So there's a lot of work that needs to go into it behind the scenes when it comes to accessing new markets, approaching new markets, trying to expand. But first, before I would suggest, before you look at expanding into a new market, we need to be comfortable with where we are and establish it. Social enterprises are formed with a certain objective in mind. It's not like selling a mobile phone, right? It's probably not like selling a branded pair of shoes. It's about a particular cause. There's a certain reason why we have started it, and sometimes the problem that we saw the people were facing, or the environment was facing, the solution that we have might not necessarily be the same solution every place or in every market. And we might have to change and customize our product to fit those individual markets. If you're looking at let's say, for example, out of my experience in the volunteer work as well, most of the time what we see is, especially in the context of road track, in our part of the world, people get involved in road track with a very big interest in terms of community service. But if you look at the western part of the world, most of the time these young individuals come and get together as a part of networking and connecting. So the interests are completely different. So you bring that into, you bring the same concept into context. The problem that we face here, the solution might be completely different in another market. So we need to understand how people behave. We need to understand how people react to certain solutions, certain problems that we are facing. It could be a product or a service. Shanta, but was there a drop in the connection?
Yes.
There was a
For
slight.
the last 10 seconds, there was a little drop.
All
But
right. Okay. Sorry about that. So coming back to the topic, because of those reasons, I think it's really important that we do our initial groundwork really well, the research part, because you might be very experienced in terms of what you do here, right? And mind you, we are quite a small economy, and there are individuals who are worth more than our own economy, the entire nation's economy. So in such a context, if we are trying to go out of this market, we need to have an idea about the big picture. It's not only about trying to go out of the market, but you also need to understand and know what who the other players are, which other social enterprises exist in the world, and whatever that seems like a problem to us, is it necessarily a problem for them as well, right? Or else, are there different aspects or perspectives to the same problem from which we can look at the same problem and give different sort of a solution? So it all goes into the basic, the overall research that you do in terms of your product or the service or the concept that you have. And in order to reach out to these markets, there are so much of tools that are available for us. You can very conveniently, do quite a lot of research with the different online platforms that are available for us. And if you want to reach out to customers or partners, any interested stakeholders, it could be donors, there are enough and more new platforms. Like, let's say, for example, you take LinkedIn. You can connect with different sorts of individuals based on their interests, right? I feel like LinkedIn is quite a heavily underutilized tool, especially in this particular segment. The reason why I say that is because there might be one or two of us who are quite, know inside out of LinkedIn. We use all the possible tools. We pay for it. We use the paid tools and all of that. But we are talking about the majority, right? Someone wants to give a solution for a problem that they are facing, and they want to reach out to partners and see where I can connect. And if the only option that they see are going to be, workshops, that's not going to take them very far. And that is why it's really important for us to explore, and also not just explore from our side, but also as in if you're a social entrepreneur, not just go looking for it. There has to be an ecosystem that educates them on that. What sort of tools are available for them? How do they network? How do they connect with a person? If you want to find someone from another country or another market who is in the same lines of your business, right? Now, let's say, for example, I also lecture at the University of Colombo. Now, if I want to do a particular research, if I want to do a particular study, I would go and check up on different articles and whatnot, and look at authors who have done interesting work. And LinkedIn is a wonderful platform for me to go and connect with that person. It's just one request away. I could say, hey, I'm interested in your work that you are doing. This is my line of work. Can I please connect with you for some of my research work, right? So that's just one example. You use the same application into your social enterprise work as well. You may find enough and more individuals around the world who are interested in the same area as you are, and who are currently doing work in the same area. And you can connect and create new partnerships, new network, right? So that is one option. You put an effort and reach out to them. Then you have different other sorts of platforms where you can advertise and get partners on board, you can get customers on board. Now there's a very interesting project that we are working on with one of our clients. Unfortunately, I'm not able to disclose any of the information, like the details of it. But being a social enterprise, they are in a mission of taking quite an interesting approach in terms of reaching to some of the markets in the Western world, which they do not sell their products or services to at the moment, right? And this approach is, or rather was, inspired by a TV series that the owner has watched, right? So it's quite interesting how people have come up with these ideas. But if we have a formal procedure where we could probably not always go and recommend what's a TV series to come up with an idea, but you get what I'm saying, right? If we can formalize this procedure where we could give them the knowledge rather than going and finding context for them, if we can give them an option where we teach them how to find the context and what tools to use exactly, I think that is where we need to be heading in terms of helping social entrepreneurs build their network and reaching out to new markets as well. That is pretty much what I would like to share with regard to that. But the conversation can go on and on and on this topic. So yeah,
100% agreed. 100% agreed, Akila. I think spot on LinkedIn, because it's only 1.5 million end users from Sri Lanka. It's only 7% of the total population, because it's just that I think we have not properly realized the potential of a platform like LinkedIn. We are all about social media likes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot. But I'm not saying that they're bad, but I think professionally, if you want to reach out to someone, it's about LinkedIn. And even we were mentioning about this thing to government sector employees very recently, how important it is for them to build their brand, personal branding as well. Right. I think very fruitful conversation took place for the last 2 hours and 6 minutes. I think thank you so much for all the effort. We I think Ahmad had to leave with a bit of a bad network connection that he had since. To mind, I mean, to notice one thing, he's been working. He's been actually traveling around the country as an initiative of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. Uh, Sharing knowledge about entrepreneurship with different rural communities. Now I think he is now in somewhere in northern province right now. So he has been doing that, and I think something that we need to highlight and celebrate that kind of an effort. Uh, and Chamatka also, I think she had to leave a bit early. But thank you so much, Chamatka, also for taking time, committing a longer time period for this panel discussion and sharing your knowledge also. Purnima, as always, I think Ideam, I think we all, as you mentioned, we share a very common interest towards sharing and benefiting the community at large. From technopreneurship, from social entrepreneurship, whatever the discussion is, I think we all work hand in hand on that. Thank you so much for coming in, committing your time, and sharing your knowledge. Dr. Kalpana, thank you so much. I think we beyond experience, but how really to approach onto social entrepreneurship is something that I also learned from you within this discussion, because and I'm so happy that these kind of discussions are now taking place in university level, because I think I recently heard that even in school level now there's a program for entrepreneurship. If you are it's like a vocational training program, right? So thank you so much for taking your time and committing to us with the last 2 hours. I think it has been a fruitful conversation with you too. Akila, last but not the least, you have been adding a lot of value on branding, digital marketing, positioning yourself, because product and people and policies, whatever it is, end of the day, if you are not communicating right to the potential market, you might not be sustaining. So it's very important to have a person like you in the panel discussion. I think there was one interesting question coming from our viewers. So the question is about, if it is a business entrepreneur, a typical business entrepreneur, the experimentation point of experimentation, you can do it and the risk is a bit less. But if you are a social entrepreneur, doing experimentations might put the whole community at risk as a large community, right? But how do you tackle it as a social entrepreneur? As a social entrepreneur, how should you tackle it? I think uh, any answers anyone would like to answer, how would they should take the risks and impact with a lesser impact, how can they manage the risks? Any thoughts? Dr.
Okay, I
Kalpana?
think
Oh, okay, Purnima can go
I
ahead. Yes.
no, okay.
No, Purnima, go ahead.
So I think well, at the base of, I mean, if you look at social sector and social problems in general, at the base of it, we do have, sustainable development goals, and we have, human rights uh, declaration and all of that. So any work that is kind of going to be built upon that. And as for like reducing the risk, I would say, again, I've mentioned this before, the feedback loop that you have with your beneficiaries. How is this from the first moment that you get in touch with your beneficiary, if there is a mechanism to ask them, okay, like, is it actually impacting you positively or is it impacting you negatively? Or if there is a mechanism to kind of get the feedback on what is actually happening because of this program, I think you can drastically reduce this risk uh, as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think another point that I also noticed while you were mentioning is that yes, social entrepreneurship is about servicing the whole society at large, but maybe you can start at a very regional, narrow market and then start expanding. I think that's something even I have learned is that uh, when you're defining a problem statement, also you don't want to serve the whole country at once, but maybe let's start with a particular community or a village and then you can grow, because scaling is, that is why the scaling is there, right? Scaling, the essential element of scaling is there because of that. So you can start small, maybe do some testing, taking some risk on servicing the community, and then see how it grows, how it can benefit the society at large, and maybe scale it up, serving the community and scale it up. uh, that may have been a proper way of approaching to it. With, I think, Purnima's comment, I also noticed that. uh, all right, I think that kind of comes to an end. I actually, it was a very fruitful conversation to have with all of you. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for taking your time, committing your time, and sharing your thoughts, inputs, and insights with us. I'm pretty sure this will be helpful to another individual who just have an idea, maybe, but to but for him or her to become a social entrepreneur, this content will be very valuable. And the program is live and it is being recorded through the social media of Facebook and YouTube. So if you go to Ideamart page or Ideamart YouTube channel, you will find this content. You can share it, and share this information, this fruitful conversation with anybody you know, so that everybody will can be benefited out of this. So thank you so much again, and I hope everybody who participating as a viewer got some kind of a input, got some kind of a value addition. Thank you so much for your time as well, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Idea
you.
Mark, for having us, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.